If you've seen my introduction to this series, then you know that in my travels of working with law of attraction type stuff for many years, that I have seen into, through my own trial and errors, many things that work easily and many things that were unbeknownst to me that I had going on that kept my stuff from coming in, the stuff I wanted, and it kept undesirable things in that I really wanted to get out. The first subject that I plan to cover is, what are we doing the rest of the time after we take the time to do our imagination process? Now, I don't know if you're just doing your imagination process for your 17 seconds or your minute or whatever and then just leaving it, or if you are in the habit of almost making it sort of like a meditation where you run the same visual type of movie, or a similar one anyway, containing the same types of images surrounding a certain particular thing that you want to have manifest, and if you're doing that on a daily basis. Any of those things work so long as you know that they work. Sometimes the benefit of doing that daily can just be to be in the presence of that. You don't really need to do that in terms of making the creation created, but it can help it from come into, as Abraham would call, non-physical being into your physical reality, because you're putting your attention and your focus there for a little span of time each day. But the question remains, what are you doing with your mind once that process is over? And that's what we're going to look at in this video, so stay with me. What I was doing after I would consistently spend day upon day upon day upon day of imagining in all its finest detail, I could see it, hear it, smell it, touch it, talk about it with other people in my little mental movie, picture it in all its finest glory. And I mean, I could really milk this out for like 20-30 minutes, no problem. And it would be like really fun and really exciting. And I had learned that I needed to not contradict. Like once I imagined all that, I needed to not say like, oh, well, how's this going to be, you know, because that will stop it from coming in. But what I really didn't understand, and what I really just wasn't clear on, was that I needed to really watch my mental space the rest of the time. And I wasn't. I was questioning everything. I was complaining about everything. I was complaining continuously to those around me or my friends on the phone about how everything was that I didn't like and that I was frustrated by. And that alone not only can, but most likely will, keep your stuff from coming in. But besides what you're doing with your mouth, there's another point, and that is, what are you listening to? And now here's where I'm going to roll back into my original footage here. While there are many things that could keep our manifestations from going in the direction that we want, I find this to be the number one culprit. What is it? Before I tell you what it is, let's backtrack just a touch. One of the things we know to do with creating something that we want is to envision it, and to envision it as if it's already in our life. So take, for example, we spend a couple minutes doing that, 10 minutes doing that. Some people even lay out on a couch or on their bed for a half hour, and they spend a whole half-hour long mental movie doing that. And they see it, touch it, see it, smell it, feel it, it's around them. They imagine conversations they would be having with people around them if that thing were really there. I mean, they really do it up in their finest imagination, glory, detail. And then they keep doing this. Let's say they even do it every day. And their stuff just isn't coming in. Why might that be? Okay, so another thing we've learned about law of attraction, you've probably heard this by now, and if not, you'll be hearing it now, and this is an important factor, is that what manifests in our reality is in response to our predominant vibration of our emotions and our thoughts. Now let's take that and compare it with the illustration I just gave. Some people will even take 20-30 minutes every single day going over their imagination of this thing as if it's in their life. But is that 20 to 30 minutes where their mind and emotions are predominantly at the rest of the day? For most people, the answer is no. Most people go right back to bitching and complaining. Excuse my use of a slightly foul word. But I know of no other one that sums that process up so perfectly. I know some people who are so addicted to bitching that they keep creating experience after experience in their life so that it gives them something else to continue to bitch about. Now, you may not be that type of a chronic bitcher, but here's what I invite you to do, and this is what I had to do before I really realized what I was doing that was kinking up my manifestation processes so much of the time. Start listening to the conversations that your friends have, that your coworkers have, that your parents might even have, people that you spend time at the dinner table with, or that you hang out with, or that you go to the mall with, or that you go take a walk with. What is most of the dialogue of most people? It's a complaint of some kind. It's either about something that's happened in their life that they're complaining about, or they're telling you about, oh, this happened to so-and-so, like this thing happened to them and it was like so bad. Can you believe that? Oh yeah, it was just terrible, blah, blah, blah. Or they're paying attention to a terrible story on the news, which, by the way, a lot of which are lies. I invite you to watch the movie Wag the Dog and to consider that this type of manipulation is happening perhaps more than it isn't. So we don't even know if what's being said in the news is factual or if it's being said to upset people and get a rise out of people, because a lot of that is being done purposefully. But whether it's true or not, let's just take for a second that some of the bad stories on the news are true. Then factually, that bad stuff is happening to less than 1% of the people. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve our compassion. But what we need to understand is that whenever we are paying attention to and focusing things that we don't like, things that we don't really want to live, or things that are not working, or things that are broken, we are feeding the sum essence of that. We are feeding injustice, things not working, things that are broken. We are feeding that with our attention and our emotional responses. And if we're going to spend enough of our time there in a day, it doesn't really matter the half hour that we spent creating our thing that we want to have manifest. Because what we're doing for the rest of our awakening time, if we're in this category, is we're listening to people complain. We're listening to people tell us about other people that they know that had some kind of bad thing happen or another. We're listening to stories, undesirable ones in the news. And all the while, if you stop and pay attention to how you feel as a response, which most of us are not really in the habit of doing, but we need to get into the habit of doing so that we can gain this powerful place of creating in our lives. We have to become aware of our emotional responses to everything we are allowing ourselves to be exposed to. And this includes TV that we're choosing to watch, movies that we're choosing to watch, video games that we're choosing to watch. We all say we don't want war, but a lot of video games are exactly about war. And a lot of TV shows or movies are like, sometimes they're funny, but at someone's expense. And if we really think about what action is being taken that we're laughing at, if we think about how we would feel if that happened to us, it's really not funny anymore if we stop and think about it from that level. Other types of TV programming and movies are just downright disturbing. And we think that they're just fantasy. But what we really need to start to become aware of is that they are making us have emotional reactions, and they are making us have mental reactions whenever we see somebody in action, whether it's in life or on TV. Our neurotransmitters fire in the exact same way as the person that we're watching. So if we're watching some undesirable type of scene taking place in a show or a movie and we're like very anxious and upset, we need to also understand that we're not only having those emotions for that duration of time, but our minds are mimicking in the way that our neurons fire the same way as what is going into that scene that we are watching. And whatever we think or see in our minds, whether it's being shown to us and then we're seeing it in response to it being shown to us, or it's our own imagination, we are, at least in that instant, making a creation. Now, it may not manifest physically into our outer world, because things have to be lined up for that to happen. But it is still being brought into a creation, at least in the non-physical. And we are experiencing it emotionally to begin with. And if we really want to get a handle on our manifestations, this is a prime area where we need to be willing and committed to taking some time to observe and make some commitments about. We may be addicted to those kind of TV shows or those kind of video games or those kind of songs with like undesirable messages of things that are all wrong that are going on. We may be addicted to all of that. But if we really start to look at how the negativity is as we feel that inside us, and we start to really put this together with what is being explained as the fundamental elements of what makes our manifestations come in or stay away, and then we start to wonder why we're experiencing some negative things in our lives, we will start to see the correlation. Because when we manifest, we don't always just manifest the exact thing that we think or the exact thing that we see. But what is tending to manifest are things that have made us feel those feelings. So if we allow ourselves to be exposed to things that make us feel vulnerable, things that make us feel fearful, things that make us feel frustrated, any of those kind of things, we may not get a manifestation that's exactly like what we saw in the movie or in the video game or that our friend told us about in their complaint tangent. But what we may really be in a line for is other things manifesting in our life that will make us feel those feelings that we felt. So do you understand? The manifestations are more really in line with the feelings than they are even the pictures. But if we hold a picture of something intently enough and for perhaps long enough until we get into that alignment of manifestation, then we could, of course, have a manifestation that is like what we saw. But what's happening more commonly than people realize is that we are manifesting in response mainly and primarily in our lives to the emotional states that we are in most of the time. So if you are feeling frustrated, a lot of people feel frustrated because they want this thing or that thing, and they think that if they have this thing or that thing, they're going to feel happy and free, or whatever it is they imagine feeling. And so in the lack of that thing, they feel frustrated, or they feel frustrated with other things going on in their life because they're paying more attention to those things than they are things that they could feel gratitude in response to paying attention to. So what happens is that not only is like let's say they're trying to manifest a car or the perfect boyfriend or girlfriend or the house or whatever. So their house and their car and their boyfriend is maybe being held out, or maybe they get those things, but maybe then there's something frustrating about those things because maybe they didn't get it quite on the level that they wanted. But the problem is that if you're spending too much of your time paying attention to things that cause you to feel fearful, cause you to feel frustrated, cause you to feel angry, then the problem is that is what your predominant vibration is most of the time. And so you're going to be manifesting more things in your life, even if it's just more of the same things, and so it appears that you're stuck. That's why it appears you're stuck, because it's like you just keep manifesting more of similar things, so it seems like you're not going anywhere, but in reality you are manifesting those things. It's just more of similar things, so it seems like it's the same thing and that nothing has moved, but that is not true at all. Everything is always moving. Every moment is a new now. Time is not really linear. So if your experience keeps looking the same, it's not that you're really stuck, it's just that every new reality that you keep manifesting, it just keeps looking a lot like the one that you've been manifesting so far, because it's where your attention and your emotions are the predominant amount of time. So in a way, I guess this is like two areas, because I mean, it really comes down to your emotions, but it started from the idea of the types of conversations that we are engaging in or that we're listening to others dish out to us. And even if you are listening to someone that likes to bitch a lot, but you're not really bitching yourself, the chances are you're actually being impacted by their bitching on such a continuous basis, and you may not even really realize it. And so it can start to affect the quality of your life, and it can start to affect the quality of the manifestations that are coming to you. You might even experience things seem like they get a little bit worse, but you might not be correlating it with the fact that you've been listening to that person vent so much all the time. And I experienced this for myself. I had thought that I had gotten to the place where I was doing so well in my own vibration and in my own thoughts that if somebody was venting ongoingly to me, that it wasn't affecting me. But my partner actually, he notices really unusual things, and like things that most people, like most people notice certain things, but he notices things that most people don't notice. And he started noticing that whenever I would go and visit this one friend, that things in our life and in our online businesses would actually go down. And I didn't notice this. And he watched this for an ongoing period of time before he brought it to my attention. Like, I had no idea. I thought that I was not being affected and I was not joining her in the actual verbalization of all the complaint tangents. I felt like I was being a good friend, letting her vent. But what I saw over time was that her continuous bitching caused a lot of things to go wrong in her and her family's life, but it always gave her something else to bitch about. And that kind of gets to the point I was making, that whatever that fundamental emotional space is that you're holding, that's what's going to manifest most for you. So you can spend your time visualizing for your thing that's really cool, your car, your dream job, your house, your dream spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. And you may or may not get those things, but what we need to really start looking at in order to live an empowered and a really joyful life is, where are our emotional spaces the rest of the time, the predominance of our day, and what are we allowing ourselves to be exposed to in conversations and media, and how are we allowing ourselves to feel? And aside from those things, where are we focusing? Because one of the problems that I had early on in my manifestation experiments was that I would take my 20 or 30 minutes and I would do it every day, and I would dream up these really cool little mental movies, but then the whole rest of the day I would spend it complaining in my mind, like, oh, I don't have enough money, I don't have this, I don't have that, like blah blah blah. And really the rest of the day I was focused on lack and frustration. And I've seen a lot of other people do this. I've known people that belong to law of attraction support groups, and they get together and they all get together as a group like once a week or once a month or whatever. And while they're there together, they all verbalize and share like this, you know, like this created reality. They each take turns, and it's all well and positive and good. And then they all leave. And the people that I've known, anyway, I don't know about the others, but the people that I've known are just in Dreersville the rest of the time, and they're wondering why their cool manifestations aren't coming. And this is really a prime problem. Okay, so when I actually set out the beginning of this video, I was going to tell you 8 things that I have learned through my experience of working with manifesting things in my life, or the lack of being able to manifest them in my life over the years that I have been working with this. That there were like 8 things that really have stood out to me over time that unknowingly caused my manifestations to practically be non-existent, or next enough to non-existent that I was frustrated most of the time. And my intention was to share all of those with you here in one video, but as I talked about the main point, that alone took 15 minutes, and I shared some really helpful details there with you that I would imagine could help you understand it more deeply. And so now I realize I probably need to break this down and not make one video with 8 points, but I don't know, more videos with less points. This one I think should just be one. So here is one of the top things, if not the top thing, that I have noticed really puts a halt on much of anything that you're trying to manifest that's good, and holds in things in your experience that you really wish would vacate. And there are other things that I have seen over time that create problems, but I believe from what I have seen, not only in my own life, but what I have observed other people doing, most other people doing pretty consistently through life, I believe this is one of the number one causes of why things are just not working the way people want to in their manifestation efforts. If that is something that you want to know more information about, and if things like this are something that you want to know more about, consider subscribing. My name's Holly, and I help people on their way to consciousness expansion and on their inner awakening journey, because conscious expansion happens naturally on the awakening journey. In fact, it's why most people want to be on an awakening journey. They want to expand consciously, they want to understand more, they want to be able to live their lives powerfully, and they want to love their life. If that's you, if those are things that you want to gain ability in, then consider subscribing, and thanks for joining me here today.